Hello, and welcome to Running the Table, the podcast where we run through everything on the table in the world of sports. And the Super Bowl matchup has been decided. The AFC and NFC Championships have both been played, and oh boy, what games they were. The AFC Championship saw Cincinnati and Kansas City play, and the NFC Championship saw a third time's the charm, San Francisco versus the Los Angeles Rams. So, Tim, without further ado, are you ready to go, good sir?
Let's run it.
Just always
fun weekend of games this time.
Always something we love to do. We love running the table here on Running the Table. But first, before we get into these games, let's go over how we did. And Tim, you're an all or nothing type guy, aren't you?
I'm either undefeated or defeated, I guess. My leap of faith paid off. I rode with Joey
quite
B and
know how it paid off, but it certainly
did.
You predicted the Super Bowl matchup correctly. And me, I am consistently mediocre.
Consistently, like every single time.
Every single week, I have gotten just as many games right as games wrong.
But you cannot end 500 because we have an odd number of games. So you are either going to be above 500 or below 500 by the end.
Unless you want us to predict the Pro Bowl, leave in the comments below if you want us to do a Pro Bowl breakdown.
Pro Bowl.
Why not?
Not the Pro Bowl.
If the people request it, we can do the Pro Bowl.
Arguably the most unpredictable game in all of the NFL, the Pro Bowl.
We can do the Pro Bowl if requested, but that's neither here nor there. We have games to cover, and the first game of Sunday was the AFC Championship game, the Cincinnati Bengals versus the Kansas City Chiefs. And Tim, your leap of faith definitely paid off. The Bengals overcame an 18-point deficit to force overtime and come back and win 27-24. That is the largest championship deficit that was overcome ever. With 5:04 in the second quarter, Kansas City was winning 21-3. With 6:04 to go in the fourth quarter, that deficit was absolutely erased. Cincinnati had taken the lead with 21 unanswered points, 24-21. Harrison Butker kicks it to send it into overtime. And then the whole world went, oh boy, here we go again, when Kansas City won the coin flip. A Von Bell.
I was part of the whole world on that one. I was like, oh, dang it.
Yeah, here we go again. But Patrick Mahomes threw an interception to Von Bell, and the Bengals drove down the field, and Evan McPherson clutches always. He remains perfect in the postseason, 12 for 12, including the second straight game with a game winner. So the legend of Joey franchise grows as the Bengals advance to Super Bowl 56. How about Joey Burrow and them Bengals?
Yeah, how about them Bengals as a whole? Because, I mean, this matchup followed...
Who did?
Yeah, exactly. This matchup actually followed relatively similarly to their Week 17 matchup, where you saw the Bengals once again go down early by a significant amount, and they were able to stall the Chiefs' offense, which looked pretty high and mighty in those first two quarters, in most of that second half to come back and make it a game again. And for the Bengals, it was relatively actually two-dimensional there. They had both sides of the game going pretty well. On the ground, they had over 100 yards combined between Mixon and Burrow scrambling. Mixon with 88 yards on 21 carries, averaging 4 yards per carry. So that definitely opened up the Bengals offense after they went down big. And in the passing game, T. Higgins actually was the one that sort of stole the show in terms of receiving yards, having 103 yards on 6 receptions. And I definitely think that part of that was that the Chiefs made a conscious effort after seeing what Jamar Chase did to both the Titans. And then who did they play in the first round? Why am I forgetting that? The Raiders. After seeing what he did to both of those teams.
I definitely think that the conscious effort to cover Jamar Chase is definitely noted, but you have to account for T. Higgins as well, because T. Higgins
got an entire receiving core, and they showed that last night.
Yeah, Jamar Chase isn't the only one you have to worry about. If you cover one, then you got to also cover 85. and they just didn't. And T. Higgins has quietly had a very good postseason of his own. So that's definitely something that Joe Burrow figured out and keyed in on.
And even though they made that conscious effort to shut down Jamar Chase, he didn't have a bad game at all. He had 6 receptions, 54 yards.
No, not at all.
When Joey B needed him most, he knew exactly where he was going when he saw Jamar Chase on that goal line play in single coverage. They ISO'd him there and he got him that key touchdown. So he still went and had his own game. It just wasn't the 100+ yard receiving performance that we saw in the last 2.
Well, another thing that I want to bring up is, for as well as the Bengals played, Patrick Mahomes, he absolutely disappeared in the second half. We couldn't tell whether it was Patrick or Jackson under there in the second half, because the first half, Patrick Mahomes' QBR was 98.4. He played really well. The Chiefs offense was rolling, touchdowns left, right, center to Kelsey, Hill, and Hardman. And then in the second half, his QBR was
flatlined
1.4. 1.4.
Oh.
Yeah, you didn't realize it was that bad, did you? Yeah. Well, 2 interceptions definitely didn't help to BJ Hill and Von Bell, the one in overtime, securing the win for the Bengals. But like he said after the game, that this loss was on him, and I think he's partially correct, because if the Chiefs don't sputter late and they keep their foot on the gas, I mean, if you give up no points, you win, but also 21 unanswered, you got to respond sometime. And the wheels on that Kansas City bus, they had gotten multiple flats, and the buck just stopped there. And it starts with the quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, like, he definitely is partial to blame, just because of the fact that his performance in the second half was iffy at best. Especially those 2 interceptions proved massive, especially, of course, the last one in overtime. That's what essentially sealed the game, as long as the Bengals were able to go like 30 yards to get into field goal range, and they did just that. One thing that I thought that was actually kind of interesting about this matchup is you saw stat line wise and just kind of overall performance out of Mahomes, you saw a bit more of what people, I think, were expecting out of Burrow. You saw a little bit worse completion percentage. Not incredible passing yards. I mean, he didn't break 300, which is honestly pretty average for Mahomes with the way that offense works. And then the 2 interceptions, another thing to point out, he was getting pressured a lot. And credit to the Bengals offensive line, they kept the Chiefs D line away from Burrow for a lot of the time,
which is not something I thought they were going to be able to do, by the way.
Exactly.
I didn't think they were going to be able to do that.
The Chiefs gave up 4 sacks, so credit to that Bengals defensive line for causing some of those miscues from Mahomes, getting to him, pressuring him, not letting him stand in the pocket and pick him apart like I know that he would like to. So it was a bit of an interesting flip of the script there for those two offensive lines.
Yeah, I definitely think that is an interesting point to note. Mahomes disappeared. The Bengals came back, took advantage, and now they're moving on to the Super Bowl, where they will take on the Los Angeles Rams. The third time is the charm for the Rams in the NFC Championship game, where they took on the 49ers in SoFi and defeated them 20-17. Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp were doing their thing, but the Niners in the fourth quarter, they were up 10 entering the final quarter of play, and they just disappeared. And they had multiple chances to put it away. I mean, they quite literally dropped and then threw away the ball game. On that final drive, Matthew Stafford looking deep, Jaquiski Tartt had it right in his hands, and he couldn't make the play, just dropped it. That allowed the Rams to go down the field, kick the field goal, take the lead. And then Jimmy G, he didn't want to take a sack, so he had a desperation shuffle pass that tipped off JaMychal Hasty's hands, and it was intercepted by Travon Howard, and the rest is history. The Rams are moving on. So, Tim, what do you got on this game?
Yeah, looking at this game as a whole, it seems like the Rams seemingly did everything they could to lose this game until Jaquiski Tartt said, "Hold my beer," and just fumbled the entire game right there. Because if they get that interception, they run out the clock, or even then they take off a bunch of clock and then give it back to the Rams, even if they didn't have much offense. But like the Rams looked pretty dead for almost the entire like middle half of that game, I would say. After going up 7-0 in the middle of second quarter with that first touchdown to Cooper Kupp, they just kind of sputtered and stopped, and they gave up 17 unanswered points, which is what put them 10 down going into that fourth quarter. And I guess they just decided to realize that they needed to outscore the 49ers to win the game. And all of
which
a
is
sudden,
how
the
you
offense
win a
woke
game
up.
of football, by the way. If you score more points
Funny
than
how
the
that
other team,
works.
you win. Exactly. Funny how that works. But
they got Cooper Kupp going, they got OBJ going, and their offense finally started to get some life in them. And while they started putting up some points on the board, Jimmy G's just faded into the background, just complete nothingness, going 1 for 6 for -3 yards and an interception on their last 2 drives, which essentially just put the nail in the coffin for the 49ers because they just could not turn anything around once the Rams got going.
yeah, what I saw, especially in the fourth, was who tried to lose the game more. And of course, obviously, you don't try to lose the game.
Yeah, but it just seemed that way based on everything was happening.
Neither team took advantage of the chances that they had. And I mean, somebody had to win, but both teams had numerous chances to not only
so many chances on
win
both sides
and put the game away. It was just the Rams down the stretch made, not less mistakes per se, but they didn't make enough mistakes to cost them the game. Because I think we can both realize that the Rams are the better team. When looking at the Rams and the 49ers, it is hard to deny that the Rams are the better team. But what we said going in was if the Rams let the 49ers stick around, they'll come back and bite them. Because the 49ers, as resilient as they are, that's exactly what happened. The Rams let them stick around and the 49ers made it a game. But down the stretch, the 49ers also started making some key mistakes and the Rams were able to take advantage and they didn't lose. And now they're going to the Super Bowl. They're hosting the Super Bowl and Matthew Stafford is going to his first Super Bowl. I bet Lions fans are happy about that. His first year's Rams quarterback, and they're in the big dance. How about that?
One of the things I saw on social media sometime, I think it was today, was the fact that Stafford is playing in the Super Bowl and Eminem is performing in the halftime show. It's
about as close as Detroit's going to get to the Super Bowl. Yep.
Yeah. But the one thing I think that is key to note from this game, at least for the Rams side of the game, memes. Yes, was the fact that they leaned on Stafford heavily because they could not get much going in the run game, and he performed, except for the fact that it was a little interesting down the stretch, something I'll bring up. But overall, 31 for 45. So he threw the ball 45 times, which obviously is a lot, for 337 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick.
I think a lot of that was they were playing from behind a lot of the game.
Yeah, so they had to throw the ball a lot. But one thing that I think was interesting is down the stretch, and you saw this on full effect in the play that Jaquiski Tartt just completely threw the game for the 49ers, is Stafford started missing some uncharacteristic passes throughout the course of like the second half of the game. And I don't know whether or not like his arm was like hurting him or he was just throwing the ball a lot or if he was just straight up missing passes. But like the potential interception was a very underthrown ball. You had some ones where he was trying to throw like some out routes to the outside, completely overthrown out of bounds. It was a little bit uncharacteristic from Stafford. So I thought that was a little bit interesting. Now, granted, he still came through when they needed him to. So like props to him. But it was interesting how some of those passes were just straight up missed passes. It didn't really seem like there was a whole lot that actually forced them.
I think that's just Stafford being Stafford because
Stafford has always the pinpoint.
He has the arm talent to make some phenomenal throws. He has that in him, but there are also some times when, you just go like, where's that ball going to? Where he just straight up misses guys. And you saw it, on the Tartt dropped interception and some out routes, like you mentioned, rather uncharacteristic throws. But then again, as somebody we've both watched Matthew Stafford for how many years in the NFC North? I think we just got to come to the conclusion that that's just Stafford being Stafford.
Yeah. And
I don't really think there's too much more to that.
One final thing about the Rams specifically, it's really interesting through the course of the game how it happened, but Cooper Kupp had a massive yet very quiet performance. Because like it seemed like he would kind of slink into the background until the Rams needed him most, whether it be like a big third down conversion or some chunky yardage when they got down deep in the hole. And I mean, 11 receptions.
11 for 14, 142 and 2 touchdowns.
2 touchdowns.
I mean, you say quiet, but is that just what we come to expect from Cooper Kupp or what?
I mean, yes, but I think down the stretch that the more loud receiver in terms of like
was Odell Beckham. I completely agree.
Making plays was OBJ, because OBJ, some of those stretches where Cooper Kupp went quiet, he was making some big plays down the stretch, some chunk yardage, and that's how he ended up with also particularly quiet 9 receptions for 113 yards, which he came in completely clutch when they needed him most. So I mean, props to both of those guys. They really helped Stafford look like a very good quarterback in this game, even when he was missing some throws. But those two guys had a huge effect for the Rams in this game when they just couldn't get the run game going.
Oh, they very much stepped up when they needed to, and it's a big part of why they're advancing to the Super Bowl in the first place. But Tim, you got anything else from the AFC and NFC Championship game?
Not from these two games in specifics. The one thing I have to say is what a playoff run so far out of all of these games. There's been so many close games, game-winning field goals. The games that have just gone down to the wire ended on a last interception, fumble. This has had, in my opinion, has to be one of the craziest like overall playoffs that we've seen in a long time. There's so many close games.
It's certainly,
and you know what, it'll be real interesting to see what the pinnacle of all of it is going to come to. Like, what is this Super Bowl going to be like after everything that's happened this postseason?
Well, we're certainly going to predict and break down the big game. Joe Shiesty, Joey franchise, and the Bengals taking on Matthew Stafford and the Los Angeles Rams. But that prediction video is to be seen in the future. But for right now, we got a lot of stuff. We've been breaking down the entire playoffs all the way through. We got a lot more stuff for you. So like and subscribe for more Running the Table content. We appreciate all the love and support. And until next time, we out.